Hey everybody, New Hampshire Hbbyloggr here, and it's the 1st of February, and we brought out the beast. I'm going to run over there real quick, give you a little perspective of the size of this thing, but it's our latest gasifier that we acquired a couple of years ago, and I just haven't had a chance to do anything with it. And then my son told me one day last week there, he says, you know, Dad, we got to get that thing going. So we're both kind of slow right now, so as far as work goes, and we decided to pull it out and dig it out of the field and bring it up here. So we've been messing with it, trying to figure out the ins and outs of the thing there. It's quite a bit different than, but then again, it's like the same, but there are a lot of different features on the thing there that we got to get used to. Apparently it was imported from Germany as a scaled down version of one of their big industrial gasification systems over there, and it was imported around the 1980s or 1990s, I guess, somewhere around there. And it was brought up to a college up in Berlin, New Hampshire, according to what the fellow was that I bought it from. And it was in a community college where they were using it to demonstrate the greatness of wood gas and possibilities of alternative heating fuels and whatnot. So anyhow, they ran out of funds and money, I guess, from what he was saying. And so it sat in a shop or in their garage there for many years. So it's been probably 30 years since this thing was fired up. So I started working on it a little bit last week and into this week. I had a bunch of videos that I did on it, but to be honest with you, none of it made any sense. And I just figured I'd just erase them all this morning. I'm going to start over again. So anyhow, we've got a little idea of how it works now. We spent a little bit of time working on that. We've had it fired off a couple times. We were making lots of moisture, and we got a little bit of a flare, but it just didn't last very long. So there's just too much moisture in it. But it's a different system, so we got to get used to it. Anyhow, I'm going to run up there, give you an idea of how big this thing is, and we'll do a little walk around. Alright, so we'll pull this thing off the stand and we'll take a little walk around, see what this thing is all about. So it's sitting on a 2-axle trailer at the moment, and that's probably where it's going to live. Right here, this is the outlet, the nozzle. It ran a 20 kW generator. Had a Volkswagen engine, obviously, coming from Germany. And I guess those are all water traps. Apparently, from what the fellow was telling me there, he says they did have a problem with water, getting rid of the water on it in the system, so that is going to have to be addressed. But let me give you some ideas what we're looking at here. Let me get a flashlight. We got a clean out door. And you might be able to see there's a grate of sorts in there. It's not the kind of grate that we're used to looking at. I think that's an air intake right there. That's cap unscrews, And I think that's the main feed when it's running. This barrel, now let me see. This is head high to me right now. There's the ignition port, or what we found is to get this thing started, you gotta end up with a kind of a coal bed in the bottom that's about a foot or two high. I'd like to have it right above this exhaust or the outlet side, and then the wood would go on top of that. I started out with some chips. I'm gonna crawl up here and take a peek down in here. This is 14 inches in diameter. It's all refractory. And there's the grate, if you want to call it that. I guess it is. And it looks to be 1, 2, 3 domes. They apparently look pretty much like stainless steel to me, but it's like 3 domes, and they're spaced. There's a space between each one of those domes, and then it goes down to that big, the outer ring is that big stainless steel plate in the bottom. Now I have an idea that is all supposed to be able to, that plate is supposed to rotate, but it's froze up tight, so I'm going to work on that maybe this afternoon. I don't know if you can see it. There's slots about a third of the, about a halfway up, I guess. And those go to the outlet for the wood gas. So the fresh air comes in, the feed for the air comes in at the bottom through those, between those domes. You got a good bed of coals right up until these slots in the grate there, or slots in the sidewall. And that's where the wood gas is pulled through. And that goes from this outlet here up the pipe and into this. Let me stand back here a little bit. See if I can get a little better view for you. So it goes into this cyclone. And when you're starting this thing up initially, this ignition port, we unscrew that cap, and that allows a lot of air to come down inside there and really get that coal bed going from what we found. And then when you're trying to run, and there's a blower motor on this thing. It's a 2-step, or it's a double. It's actually a 3-phase motor, and one of them goes into this radiator and cooler back in here. I don't know if you can see it. So actually what this does, once it goes through the cyclone, it comes out of this, comes out of the gasifier, up the pipe, into the cyclone, and then it exits out through there, goes down through that radiator, and that's kind of tinny. So I think there's just maybe a couple of pipes in there, or a splitter. And that is going to be the cooler, and there's on the back side of that, to keep the warm air coming out, there is where that coffee can's hanging, there's a flapper there, adjustable, so that you can let the hot air out. And then once it comes out of there, it comes out of the bottom of that, the wood gas does, and it comes up into this paddle wheel. And that's a 3-horse, 3-phase motor, belt drive, which turns that. And it's got a water pump on it. And this tank, what we're figuring out, this is a water supply. And it's also a seal. And I think what happens, because we're not sure yet, but this has to be filled up with water to about maybe where this hole is there. This is just that's not sitting there, that's capped. But the wood gas comes up in here, then gets tossed around in this. And it's right at the, I think it pushes it up into this condenser. And it can't go anywhere. The condenser is about, I got a camera in there yesterday, and the bottom of that condenser comes to about here on the tank. Yeah, it's somewhere right in there from the bottom. So it's like a diving bell. So that seals the wood gas from escaping, allows it to come up into this riggy right here. We were going to pull this off and see what's in there. It's got something in there because there's no ring to this one. And on here we got a manometer, which is broken, or frozen anyhow. So then the wood gas comes out of there, and then down and up into these, I think these are like steam traps to collect water, and then they drain back down into that tank. There is a bottom drain on it, and then it exits out through there, or I think this right here is a to test the flare, because we can open this and we can close this off so that the exhaust comes, or the wood gas comes right up out of here. So in operation, once you get a good bed of coals going, for about a third of it, we're going to start it off with charcoal probably, and you get a good amount of good smoke coming out of the top exhaust up there, which is direct out of this cyclone. It gets pretty hot. It's direct. There's no it's not cooled off at all by then. We close that valve off, and then it has to go force through the rest of the system, and then of course it gets to that point where it pipes into the engine. So what we're going to plan on doing is having an engine and a generator, which I happen to have. I got a 4-cylinder Ford engine. It's a Winco generator, 20 kW, single phase, 220, and that's going to be the workhorse on this thing. We spent the first few days, let me give you a little history on this thing. The school decided they wanted the trailer back, and the guy that was involved in it somewhat said he'd get rid of this thing there. He kept the generator. They asked him just to get rid of the whole thing. They wanted their trailer back, and they didn't have any use for the gasifier. So he brought it back to his home, not too far from here, about 45 minutes away, and started to disassemble it. All these electric motors and everything, it was still pretty much undercover. He had a tarp over it anyhow, but like I say, it was 30 years. It was stored inside of a shop, heated shop somewhere up north. But then when he started to dismantle the thing, it's got a 3-phase rotaphase converter on it. All the wires were cut. They were all cut off. They were just chopped right off of the boxes. The boxes were not mounted on anything, and everything just came to us in a pile. So we had to figure out pretty much everything, and it's kind of like a puzzle. We had to put it all back together, try to figure out the wiring on it, which after a few days we did get everything set. The 3-phase converter works just fine. It powers everything up, and so we're pretty happy with the thing there. I suppose I could turn that on real quick, let you hear this thing, but I'm not going to run any gas on it. But you hold on for a second there. We'll get get this thing just plugged in. That's all I have to do. We got temporary disconnect, or we got disconnect cables on this thing so we can bring it inside all the electronics anyhow. So we got the handy dandy plugs here. Figure out what's going where. We're not going to do anything on this thing this week. It's starting to cool down now. Like I say, we were going to try to, the floor on the trailer is getting a little bit rotted, so we got to get some planks under there to support this thing, because this is going to be the full-time thing for it. But hang on a second, I'll go turn on the power. Okay, that's the rotophase kicking in. So we're now producing three-phase power. And I'll turn on the little blowers right here. So that double riggy there, that's blowing air into the cooler, into the stack. But you're not going to see anything because I've got it pretty well cleaned out. And then this is the big blower, the paddle wheel for the water paddles there. That throttle down before I shut the rotophase off so we don't get any back feed go through it. So that's where we are so far. We've got a plan of starting up, but we can't do anything until we don't have to worry about the water freezing. If we start moderating in the temperature where it's just going to get a little chilly at night, maybe it'll be all right. But we're going to have to be real cautious. See that we're going to have to drain it every time. And I'll bet you there's... let me shut this off. Okay. Now, another little tidbit of information. This Predator 9500 will just... We have a pigtail for that we built to run this three-phase, rotophase, and then it will run that little blower just fine, the three-phase motor. That big one is a challenge. So this one is a real challenge. If we keep, generally right off the bat it was tripping the breaker on the generator. As soon as it just about started up, of course, nothing had run in 30 years, so the shaft was fine. This is getting better now, but it still takes a lot of oomph to get that big paddle wheel going in there. The belt was stiff and everything. That's starting to loosen up good now, or a little more flexible. So anyhow, if you keep turning the power on and off on the generator and just get that motor turning, that you can get it faster and faster by flicking the switch up and down until you get it up to speed. It did it. So in a pinch, that 9500 surge watts will run it at 7600 watts. So anyhow, so this is just an introduction on this thing for you guys. Some of you know I've been fiddling with it a little bit. I just really, the last couple of years I've just been busy with a lot of other stuff, and But this is a real beast. It's 5 high. Oh, I measured the depth of that the wood hopper in there, and it's 5 feet from top to bottom, and 14-inch diameter. So anyhow, I'm gonna shut this down, get it out to you when we find out more information on it, and we have a little more time to mess with it. Like I say, it's gonna be 13 or 17 below come this Saturday. So guess what? This ain't gonna happen. Alrighty, I think I'll pull some plugs out of the bottom of those things because you know, it's been out for a couple of years anyhow, but got to find out. I don't see anything cracked or broken on it, but alright, that's it for now. Peace.